My parents kicked me out over my brother's lies. Years later, they saw my success and demanded money. Hey there, I'm a 28-year-old woman with a twin brother, and growing up, our parents treated us like we were from different planets. They were totally convinced that my brother was going to be a superstar, while I was labeled the black sheep just because I preferred playing sports and hanging out with friends over burying my nose in books. The constant comparisons were super demoralizing and really took a toll on my self-esteem from an early age. On our birthdays, I'd watch my brother have these epic parties with his friends while I was pretty much ignored. He got to have sleepovers, but I wasn't even allowed to invite friends over. Honestly, I hated every second of my childhood. The only person who seemed to get me was my grandma. Whenever she came by, she'd sneak me my favorite chocolates and sometimes a little cash so I could treat myself, which was like the highlight of my life back then. As we got older, this obvious favoritism towards my brother turned into straight-up emotional abuse towards me. My parents would openly mock my grades and belittle my hobbies, and no matter how hard I tried, I could never meet their sky-high expectations. I was good at sports, but they wouldn't let me join any activities because all they wanted was for me to study like my brother. It was beyond frustrating. I felt trapped. Then in my sophomore year, the whole thing blew up when I got grounded. And why? For having Snapchat on my phone. I hadn't done anything wrong. Like every other teen, I just wanted to stay in touch with my friends. But my parents flipped out, accused me of breaking their trust, and went totally ballistic. They trashed my room and even took my door off its hinges. My privacy was officially dead as long as I lived under their roof. While all this was happening, my brother was no help. Instead of having my back, he made everything worse. Our parents' favoritism allowed him to take advantage of the situation. He'd lie about me, make up stories, and blame me for everything. If he stole something, I'd get blamed, no questions asked. He'd even humiliate me in front of my friends, making fun of my looks. Despite that, I managed to have a bunch of friends at school, probably because I was outgoing and easy to talk to. My brother, being more introverted, struggled socially and resented that I could make friends so easily. Things really hit the fan on our 14th birthday. No one showed up for his party, while my friends took me out for ice cream and we had a blast. My brother was furious. To get back at me, he started spreading false rumors at school, painting me as some kind of spoiled monster. He went so far as to punch himself to fake injuries and claimed I was the one hurting him. People started buying into his lies, and soon even my friends began looking at me differently. It was a real shocker when my ex-best friend finally told me what my brother had been saying about me. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. How could he spread such lies? When I confronted him, hoping he'd stop, he just smirked and said I deserved to be alone. His words freaked me out. I wanted to tell my parents, but I was scared they'd just side with him as usual. The whole thing really sucked because I loved making friends, but thanks to my brother's jealousy and lies, it was like all the connections I'd built were crumbling. So, it all started when teachers began picking up on these wild rumors about me. It felt like I was stuck in some weird alternate universe where the real me got buried under the crazy lies my twin cooked up. It all started as typical teen gossip but quickly blew up into something that actually changed how people looked at me. Things got serious when these nasty rumors made their way to the principal. That's when things really went south. The principal called me, my brother, and our parents into his office to chat about all these supposed rumors. I sat there, heart pounding, hoping my brother would finally fess up. But nope, he stuck with his story, telling the principal that everything was true. He made it sound like I was some schoolyard bully, beating him up when mom and dad weren't around. I was just sitting there in shock as he spun this wild tale about me being jealous of him because our parents loved him more. All lies, but he was sticking to them like glue. It got super intense when my mom started crying, clinging to my brother like he was some kind of hero. Meanwhile, my dad was trying to comfort him, saying how brave he was for speaking up and that he'd make sure nothing ever happened to him again. I was desperately trying to defend myself, pleading with the principal that it was all made up. It felt like I was drowning in accusations, and my brother just kept going, insisting I was this angry, violent person taking everything out on him. My mom's tears didn't stop, and she just kept giving me those accusing looks. The principal really laid into me about how the school doesn't put up with bullying and that I could get suspended. I begged him not to do it, tears streaming down my face, telling him over and over that I didn't do anything. But he was firm, saying I'd be suspended for 10 days to show everyone how seriously the school took bullying. It hit me hard, and I broke down, practically begging him to change his mind. My parents, totally embarrassed and mad about the whole situation, yanked me out of the office. I didn't want to leave, I wanted to make them understand. But they weren't having any of it. When we got home, things got even worse. My dad started packing up my stuff out of nowhere. I was shocked and confused, not knowing what was happening. My mom asked what he was doing, and he just shouted that I couldn't live in the same house as my brother anymore. I was crying, practically on my knees, begging my brother to tell the truth. But he was cold and unmoved. My dad kept packing, eventually tossing my suitcase into the foyer. I clung to his legs, begging him not to kick me out. It was like a nightmare. He told me a bully like me didn't deserve to live in his house and that he'd call my grandmother to come get me. The world crumbled around me as I stood there, stunned, surrounded by my stuff. Eventually, my grandmother showed up. She gathered my things, helped me into the car, and strapped me in safely. Then she went to confront my parents. She lit into my dad for treating me this way and warned him not to contact me again, or she'd involve the police or CPS because of how he treated me. My mom tried to shift the blame onto me, but Grandma wasn't having it. She stood firm, defending me and stressing that I was just a kid who didn't deserve such heartless treatment. It was the first time I saw just how powerful and protective my grandmother could be, and she actually believed in me. We left, my heart heavy with all the pain and humiliation of leaving the only home I'd ever known. I can't even describe how unbearable that time was. I was crying, refusing to eat even though my grandmother tried her hardest to get me to. I told her everything my brother did, and she was shocked too, but at least she believed me. It felt good to have someone on my side. When the 10-day suspension was up, going back to school felt like walking straight into a lion's den. As I walked down those familiar hallways, the judgment was everywhere, whispers, sideways glances, the whole deal. The shadow of those false accusations just wouldn't go away. So, my brother basically started pretending I didn't exist. He made some new friends who totally believed his version of things and thought I was the bad guy. No matter how much I tried to share my side, nobody seemed to care. It felt like I was wearing a label that screamed outcast everywhere I went: classroom, cafeteria, hallways. People looked at me like I was some kind of villain, and it sucked. I turned into a total loner, just keeping my head down, going to classes, eating lunch by myself, and heading straight home. I had zero friends, and it felt like everyone wished I wasn't there. My parents? They didn't even bother checking in on me. Thank goodness for my grandma, though. She always reminded me it wasn't my fault and things would get better. I managed to finish high school with decent grades and hoped college would be a fresh start. College was a game changer. For the first time, I felt free. No one was breathing down my neck about grades or trying to compete with me. I started meeting great people and actually made friends with folks who got me. Even though the past left some scars, I was focused on enjoying college as much as I could. That's when I realized I had a knack for writing content. I've always wanted to be a writer, but I wasn't sure if it was a realistic career choice. So, I put that dream on hold. But I needed some extra cash, so I tried freelance writing and signed up on freelancing sites. It was awesome. I started building a portfolio, and thanks to these gigs, I never had to ask my parents for money. After college, instead of grabbing a corporate job, I went all in with content writing. I was doing pretty well and had some solid clients, which meant I could work on multiple projects. Freelancing made me financially independent and gave me the chance to travel the world as a digital nomad. Traveling helped me heal from the past, even though it wasn't always easy. I saved up and took a leap of faith on myself. I've seen so much of the world now, but there's still so much left to explore. Throughout all of this, my grandma was the only family member I was close to. I loved her dearly, and she understood my need for independence when I moved out. Even with a hectic schedule, I made sure to spend time with her whenever possible. Our weekends were often spent sharing meals or chatting on the porch, and I loved helping her with chores or going for peaceful walks in the park. Recently, I wrapped up a huge project, and while I can't name the brand, I got to write blogs and product descriptions for them. After finishing up, I asked the team for positive reviews, and they were super nice about it. I shared some of their feedback on Instagram because working with them was a big deal. Tons of fellow content writers gave me shoutouts, and some even reposted my story, which led to strangers reaching out for help with their websites. Even my relatives noticed and congratulated me. Then, out of the blue, my college principal invited me to speak at a seminar about building a career in content writing. Public speaking makes me nervous, but I decided to go for it. Standing in front of eager students, sharing my journey, felt like everything had come full circle. Talking about my struggles and how I got through them was so rewarding, and the response was amazing. Some clips even went viral on Facebook groups. Just last week, I got a chance to talk on a local news channel about the perks of content writing. I was nervous but excited. I shared my story, highlighted the importance of client reviews, and showed how a little appreciation can open huge doors. It was an incredible chance to inspire more people in the field and reach a wider audience. Man, when that show finally aired, it was both humbling and exciting. I couldn't help but share some of those clips on Instagram. I was just really proud to have been invited onto a TV show. That's how my relatives and cousins started finding out I was doing well in my career. Honestly, my parents never really mentioned me to anyone, so they had no clue I was working with big brands and getting TV invites. Word spread within the family super fast, and I guess my TV appearance finally caught my parents' attention too. A few days later, I was deep into another project with my phone on silent. When I wrapped up, I checked my phone and, surprise, I had 6 missed calls from my mom. My jaw dropped because it had been ages since she last called me. After years of silence, I couldn't wrap my head around why she suddenly reached out. I called her back, a bit hesitant, and she answered right away. I asked if everything was okay, and she started congratulating me. And just like that, my dad chimed in too. They were suddenly all curious about my life, asking how I was doing. I didn't think much of it until they started poking around about my income. I straight up told them it was none of their business, and my dad said we're family so I shouldn't be shy about sharing. I just said I was doing fine financially. That's when the conversation took a turn. My mom started talking about how hard things were for them now. I raised an eyebrow, feeling suspicious. Here's basically how it went down. Mom, we're retired now and really want to fix up the house. It's in bad shape, but we have no savings left. Me, okay, Mom. Mom, seeing your success has given us hope. After watching your TV interview today, we thought maybe you could help us out by paying for the renovations. Dad, we're family, you shouldn't hesitate to share some of your earnings with us. We could really use your help. Me, are you serious right now? Why would you ask me for money when you haven't talked to me in years? I don't even know why you're reaching out, and while I appreciate the congrats, I'm not going to help you financially. My mom went on to say I was being ungrateful and needed to support the family. My dad added that as parents, they deserved my help. I was so mad I wanted to tell them off, but then I got this idea: instead of just arguing, why not teach them a lesson? They thought they could just hit me up for money after all those years of ignoring me. So, I told them I'd help only if they agreed to my conditions. My dad curiously asked what those were, and I laid it out. If they wanted my help, they had to tell our family and friends that my brother was the one who spread all those hurtful rumors about me and ruined my reputation. Basically, I wanted them to humiliate him like they'd done to me by believing his lies. I wanted them to take responsibility for their actions and acknowledge the pain they'd caused. When I hit them with that, my dad started questioning if it was really necessary. My mom said we didn't need to involve others and could just talk about it privately, but I wasn't backing down. It was non-negotiable, a must if they wanted any help from me in the future. As things got tense, my dad raised his voice, pulling the "I'm your father" card, insisting it was my duty to help. My mom tried making me feel guilty, reminding me of the years they spent raising me. I couldn't help but find it ironic since they'd kicked me out, and it was actually my grandmother who raised me. They got more and more agitated, but I stood my ground. I told them if they wanted to reconnect and wanted my financial help, they needed to own up to the truth and hold my brother accountable. Since that call, my parents have been blowing up my phone, but I'm ignoring them. I kind of regret even calling them back in the first place. I'm wondering if I'd really be a jerk if I didn't help them at all. Update: it's been a wild week since I shared my story, and the support from everyone has been amazing. I'm glad to know I'm not alone in this, and that most people agree I shouldn't get involved with my parents or consider helping them after what happened. Honestly, I set those conditions because I pretty much knew they'd never agree. I know they're never going to call out my brother because they're way too fond of him, despite everything. You've probably realized by now that all of this has been his lies. I know they'll never make him go through what I went through today. So, my brother sent me this really mean text after my parents tried calling me again, and I just didn't pick up. Here's what he said: "Hey sis, it's been ages since I last saw you, and honestly, life's been pretty awesome without you around. I know mom and dad got in touch, and you gave them some crazy conditions. You know they'll never agree to that, right? They never loved you, and they'd never do anything to hurt me. Yeah, I lied about you 15 years ago, but come on, that was forever ago. Stop being selfish and let go of the past. You're single and don't have kids, so why not help them out with their house repairs? Do the right thing and be a better daughter." Reading that message felt like a punch in the gut. His nerve to brush off everything I went through and just ignore my boundaries showed how little he cared. The way he tried to guilt-trip me by pointing out my single status was just plain cruel. And his suggestion that I should care more about their needs than my own well-being? That was so disrespectful. It made me really angry, and I wanted justice. So, I decided it was time to spill the beans about everything that had happened. I sat down and wrote an email to my parents and close family, telling them all about my rough childhood and the favoritism I faced while growing up at home. In the email, I talked about the strict and oppressive environment under my parents' roof and how differently they treated me compared to my twin brother. I also shared the nasty rumor my brother spread about me in school, which messed up my reputation big time. I wrote about how my parents kicked me out, and if it hadn't been for my grandma, I might not have survived. At the end, I attached a screenshot of my brother's message where he admitted to lying about me. I hoped it would finally bring the truth to light. I just hit send an hour ago, and I know all hell is about to break loose when my parents and brother read it. I'll keep you posted on their reactions. Update. It's been a month since I last filled you in, and a ton has happened. As expected, my family exploded after getting the email. My parents caught a lot of heat from relatives who didn't know just how bad the favoritism and emotional abuse were. Loads of family members reached out, saying they had no idea about all this and apologized for not being there for me earlier. My brother and parents bombarded me with a flood of nasty and threatening texts, so I decided to lawyer up. My lawyer sent them a cease and desist notice, basically telling them to back off or else face serious legal trouble. I guess they got scared straight because I haven't heard from them since. My grandma thinks I did the right thing by sharing what happened and is totally in my corner, which means the world to me. Update 3. It's been 2 months since I last updated you, and things are going really well. Work-wise, my content writing biz is booming, and I keep getting invites to speak at seminars and podcasts, which is awesome because it feels like I'm really making a name for myself. I'm still super close with my grandma. I recently took a break from work to hang out with her. She's all about gardening these days and taught me a bunch about the flowers and herbs she's growing. Those moments, whether we're eating together, having deep chats, or just chilling, are some of my favorite memories. My family has stayed away since my lawyer's letter, so that's a relief. On a personal note, I've started therapy to work on healing from everything, which is a big step forward for me. I think I'll wrap up my updates here for now.